Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen are being re-released on the Switch 1, and as such, I want to tell you guys about some of the version differences. Though these games are very similar pretty much all throughout, there are a few things that definitely make a big difference in which one you should choose to play in case you want to make sure to know this information. So let's get started with Section 1. So let's talk about the surface level differences. Before we talk about Pokemon, let's actually cover the obvious stuff. Starting things off with the fact that FireRed has, of course, Charizard on its title screen. LeafGreen has Venusaur, and this actually determines the color pattern which you see in-game. And specifically, when you actually look at some of the UI, it will actually look slightly different based on the game you choose. So it does set the tone slightly differently in case you care about things like that. It's very minor difference, but again, some people might prefer the green over the red. Then there is the stuff that actually is the same between the games. The entire story, from Pallet Town to the Elite Four and Champion, is the same. The 8 gym leaders, the rival battles, TMs, move tutor, legendary Pokemon, minigames, all those things are pretty much the same. However, there are some notable changes from the original Red and Blue. Now, before we get to the entire list of exclusives, it's worth knowing that FireRed and LeafGreen actually sort of reshuffled some of the original version exclusives from Gen 1. A few things that changed, for example, is Mankey and Meowth. Originally Red exclusives are now catchable in both games. Psyduck and Shelder, originally in both games, are now FireRed exclusives. Slowpoke and Staryu, originally in both games, are now LeafGreen exclusives. Magmar was actually moved from the Pokemon Mansion to Mount Ember on one island, and this is in LeafGreen only. Ponyta was also moved from the Pokemon Mansion to Kindle Road on one island, again, but this time on both games. Moltres was moved from the Victory Road to Mount Ember on one island in both games. In case you do not know what these islands are, it's the Sevi Islands. It's an entire, like, almost post-game separate area, but it's still part of the main plot in case you want to explore it. But either way, you also have Ditto, which moved from outside of Victory Road to the Pokemon Mansion in both games, and the in-game Lickitung trade on Route 18 now actually asks for Golduck in FireRed, since Slowbro is LeafGreen exclusive. In LeafGreen, it still asks for the Slowbro. So those are some of the weird, notable changes from Red and Blue. But then we have some actual difference, right? Which is the Deoxys form. See, Deoxys is a interesting Pokemon. You can actually get it in this game, and it's one of the most genuinely unique and interesting version differences. So Deoxys is a Psychic-type legendary. It takes a different form depending on which game you're playing, and FireRed Deoxys is locked in its attack form, which has highest attack and special attack in the game, but has really fragile defense. In LeafGreen, it takes the defense form. It's a more tanky wall Pokemon, significantly lower offensive stats, but you cannot change Deoxys forms within these games without trading it to a different Gen 3 game. This was, of course, before Game Freak made form changes freely available with items and stuff, so the version you own literally determines which version of Deoxys you get, which, yeah, that is a version difference that definitely makes a big difference in case you care about it. But then again, if we're going to have home support in the Switch version, maybe it's not going to matter as much. But if you're somebody who doesn't use Pokemon, home, this might be really important in case you want to get the version that fits you the best. And of course, this is the big one, version-exclusive Pokemon. This is a full list with locations, right? Now, here is every version-exclusive Pokemon, with also exactly every location to find them. Sevi Island locations are only accessible post-Elite Four, so just keep that in mind. But starting off with FireRed and LeafGreen exclusives, which is Ekans and Arbok. Now, these two, the poison types, are located in the following locations. Ekans is located at Route 4, 8, and Route 9, which is a common encounter in the tall grass there. As for Arbok, you can just evolve it from Ekans at level 22, and it's also found at the Wild Route at Route 23, and the Victory Road, which is less common, it's more uncommon there. Then we have number 43, 44, and 45, baby, which is Oddish, Gloom, Vileplume, and also at the end, Blossom. Now, these grass poison types are interesting because you will find them in the following locations. For Oddish, you're going to be looking at Route 5, 6, and 7, which it's going to be a common encounter there. If you're looking for Gloom, it evolves from Oddish at level 21, but also is found as a wild Pokemon on routes 12, 13, and 14, where it's more common to be found. If you're looking for Vileplume, it of course evolves from Gloom with a Leaf Stone, but it can also be found in the Safari Zone, or actually the stone could be found in the Safari Zone or Celadon Department. If you want to get Blossom, then you got to evolve Gloom with a Sunstone, but this requires the National Dex to actually evolve, and then you got to trade with Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald or obtain it post-game if you want these items. But again, there's probably going to be an easier way in these games to get your hands on it. I'm assuming the National Dex will be the most likely scenario. But moving on next, though, we have Psyduck and Golduck, also exclusive to FireRed and LeafGreen. Now, these water types are interesting. So first of all, well, Psyduck, Route 6. You're going to be having to use Surf, and it's pretty common. Also, you can find it at Cerulean Cave's first floor and the bottom first floor, where you also find it by surfing. If you want Golduck, though, of course, you just got to evolve from Psyduck at level 33, but it's also found wild at the Cerulean Cave's first floor and bottom first floor while surfing. However, here comes the big one, and this is the one that makes a really big difference, okay? Really big difference, and that is going to be Growlithe and Arcanine. See, these are exclusive to FireRed and Leaf, like specifically FireRed, but LeafGreen gets a different Pokemon, that being Vulpix and Ninetales. So if you want to get Growlithe and Arcanine, you have to play FireRed version. So for Growlithe, his location is Route 7 and 8, and the Pokemon Mansions, first floor, second floor, third floor, and bottom first floor. It is an uncommon encounter and probably most popular FireRed exclusive that you can find, right? Arcanine, of course, evolves from Growlithe with a Firestone, but it can also be found in Mount Ember, which that stone can be found in Mount Ember or Celadon's department store. However, that's a big one. But the next one, maybe some of you care about it too, which is Shelder and Cloyster. Now, Shelder, the water type, and Cloyster, the water ice type, are found at the following locations. Shelder is at Cinnabar Island and Pallet Town, but here you need a Super Rod to find them, right? And if you're looking for Cloyster, it evolves from Shelder with a Water Stone. You can find the Water Stone at Seafoam Islands or at Celadon's department store. However, next is another really big one, because this is one of those exclusives that is in FireRed, and the opposite of it in LeafGreen is a big difference. So you got Scyther and Scizor, which are exclusive to FireRed. These guys, the Bug Flying and Bug Steel, are very specific because you can find Scyther in the Safari Zone. It is a rare encounter and one of the most wanted exclusives. Of course, evolving Scyther is by trading it while holding a Metal Coat, which requires, I think at this point, just the National Dex and trading with another Gen 3 game or another player. So you're gonna have to find someone to trade with, and I think trade evolutions and stuff like that will be possible, and trading will be possible, so you should be able to do that. But again, like I said, if you want to get Scyther, it is exclusive to Pokemon FireRed version. However, the opposite of it is Pinsir. If you want to play LeafGreen, you get Pinsir instead, and it's also found in a similar way. But yeah, again, if you prefer Pinsir, you go for LeafGreen. If you prefer Scyther, you go for FireRed. Moving on, though, we have the next ones, which is Electabuzz and Elekid. So these electric types can be found at the power plant. Electabuzz location is there. It's an uncommon encounter. As for Elekid, you can actually breed Electabuzz, requires National Dex, alternatively found in the Wild Post game, and requires breeding or trading if you're looking to get Elekid. Next up, though, we have Wooper and Quagsire. Now, these water ground types can be found, specifically Wooper at 4 Island, surfing in the water area there. It's very common in the Sevi Islands or Post Elite 4. As for Quagsire, you evolve it from Wooper at level 20. If you're looking to get your hands on Murkrow, the dark flying type, it is on 5 Island at the Lost Cave. It is very rare, and it's a post-Elite 4 Sevi Islands area. If you're looking to get Quillfish, it's a water poison type, which is located at 5 Island by surfing and 6 Island by surfing, and also is post-Elite 4. If you're looking to get Delibird, it's also exclusive to FireRed LeafGreen. It's an ice flying type. It's found on 4 Island, so you can notice this, a lot of these are going to be at, like, you know, the post-game Sevi Island, stuff like that. But Delibird is at the Icefall Cave. It is rare. It's post-Elite 4 and one of the rarer finds on the Sevi Islands. If you're looking to get Skarmory, the Steel Flying type, it is on 7 Island. It's in the tall grass on the island. It's also rare, and it's also post-Elite 4. And then, of course, we already mentioned Deoxys' attack form, exclusive to FireRed. This, of course, Psychic type, is found on Birth Island. Now, this is an event-only location, which is accessed via a Nintendo event item called the Aurora Ticket. Deoxys is locked in its high offense attack form in FireRed and cannot be obtained through normal gameplay without the event item. The Aurora Ticket will most likely be distributed or given to you by an NPC in the game, probably in the post-game. But that was FireRed. Now, let's move on to LeafGreen exclusives. Starting things off, of course, with Sandshrew and Sandslash. These fellas are ground type, and Sandshrew can be found at routes 4, 8, and 9. It's exclusive to LeafGreen, it's a common encounter, and it's a direct counterpart to FireRed's Ekans on the same route. Sandslash evolves, of course, from Sandshrew at level 22 and also is found at Route 23 and, of course, the Victory Road, and it's uncommon. If you're looking to get Vulpix and Ninetales, these are the equivalent or the reverse, right? The direct counterpart to FireRed's Growlithe in the same route. It's, of course, found at Route 7, 8, and the Pokemon Mansion's first, second, third, and bottom first floor. Again, it's the direct counterpart. If you want to get Ninetales, you just simply evolve the Vulpix with a Firestone, which you can get this Firestone at Mount Ember or the Celadon department store. If you're looking to get Bellsprout, Weepinbell, or Victreebel, they are the, of course, counterparts to FireRed's Oddish in the same route of 5, 6, and 7. They're very common. Grass Poison if you're looking for Bellsprout. As for Weepinbell's location, it evolves from Bellsprout at level 21, but it's also found as a wild Pokemon on routes 12, 13, and 14. For Victreebel, you evolve from Weepinbell with a Leaf Stone. Of course, the Leaf Stone can be found at the Safari Zone or the Celadon department store. If you're looking to get your hands on Slowpoke, Slowbro, or Slowking, these water psychic types, well, Slowpoke is found at Route 6 by surfing, at the Cerulean Cave's first floor or the bottom first floor by surfing, or directly counterparting to, of course, Psyduck, right? So if you wanted Psyduck, you gotta play Fire Red. If you want Slowpoke, you play Leaf Green. But next up is Slowbro's location. So of course here you evolve from Slowpoke at level 37, can also be found wild at the Cerulean Cave's first floor and bottom first floor by surfing. Slowking, of course, evolves from Slowpoke by trading while holding a King's Rock. This requires the National Dex if you want to get the King's Rock, so you're gonna have to do that. Next up we have Staryu and Starmie. Now Staryu, water type, is of course going to be found at Pallet Town or Vermilion City, Cinnabar Island, and One Island. It needs this Super Rod to be found. If you want Starmie, you just evolve it with a Water Stone using it on your Staryu. Also, you're going to have to get these Water Stones either at Seafoam Islands or the Celadon department store. Next up, we have Magmar and Magby, which are really, really cool ones. But to get these fellas, you need to go to, specifically for Magmar, to Mount Ember's grass area on One Island. It's uncommon. Note, in the original Gen 1 games, Magmar was actually found in the Pokemon Mansion, but in FireRed LeafGreen, they moved it to Mount Ember for some reason. But yeah, I guess it was just to balance things out and have a kind of a reverse of Electabuzz and Elekid, because Magby can specifically just be bred for and requires the National Dex. You can breed for a Magmar, breed a Magmar to get a Magby. But yeah. Next up is Pinsir. So this bug type, of course, is in the Safari Zone. It's a rare encounter. It's the direct counterpart to FireRed's Scyther. So it's a Scyther versus Pinsir. It's kind of like a, it's whatever you prefer, right? And since these games don't have Mega Evolutions, you're gonna have to choose yourself what you want to go for. Next up, we have Azurill, Marill, and Azumarill. Of course, if you're going to be looking at Marill, its location is Mount Ember. It's a rare encounter. As for Sevi Islands and Post Elite Four, that's where you're going to be ending up finding it. As for Azumarill, evolves from Marill, of course, level 18. And Azurill needs to be bred with a Marill or Azumarill while holding a Sea Incense, which, of course, all of this requires the National Dex. Next up, we have Misdreavus, which is exclusive to Leaf Green. This ghost type is found on 5 islands, Lost Cave, and it's Post Elite 4. It's a direct counterpart to FireRed's Murkrow in the same location. Then we have Sneasel, which is a pretty big one. Now this fella is found specifically on 4 Island in the Icefall Cave. It's Post Elite 4 and it's a direct counterpart to Delibird, which is in the same cave. It's a pretty rare Pokemon. Next up we have Remoraid and Octillery. Now these water types can be found on, specifically for Remoraid, 5 Island while surfing, 6 Island while surfing, Post Elite 4, and it's a direct counterpart to FireRed's Quillfish in the same air water tiles. Of course, it evolves into Octillery at level 25. Mantine. Now this fella, okay, he's found on 7 Island, surfing in the surrounding water. He's a rare Pokemon, and he's Post Elite 4. And then, of course, we have Deoxys' defense form. This one, of course, is found again on Birth Island, and is an event-only Pokemon via the Aurora ticket. And, of course, it is locked to its high defense form in Leaf Green version. It's the same legendary, just completely different stat spreads. But yeah, so that's that. The version choice then, well, it's up to you. Which version should you get? Now, the single biggest deciding factor, in my opinion, is just which Pokemon do you prefer more? Like, I think the big one would probably be, do you prefer Growlithe or Vulpix? Do you prefer, Ninetales or Arcanine? Which one of those two do you prefer? Both are, of course, strong Pokemon. They're beloved fire types, but do you prefer the epicness of Arcanine or the beauty of Ninetales? It's really up to you at the end of the day. The second one, of course, that really matters is Scyther versus Pinsir. Which one do you really want? Because both are really, really good Pokemon, but which one do you prefer? And of course, FireRed also gets the better kind of defensive wall if you're looking for. FireRed also gets that Deoxys attack form, and Leaf Green gets that Deoxys, defense form or whatever. So like, which one do you really want? At the end of the day, most of the stuff is going to be very much the same, but of course, you got to make sure you choose the game that has the exclusives that matter to you the most. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one.